carefully without... Hey, how goes it? This is Leupold 76, I'm Chad, and today we're going to give this Savage Axis a facelift. Alright, let's get after it. Alright, before we get started, I'd like to give you guys a little bit of background on my qualifications. So anyway, 20-some years ago, I was a carpenter. Did quite a bit of woodworking and carpentry work, and all throughout my adult life I've performed my own services and repairs on my vehicles, and I even took a machining class in high school, so I feel like that makes me more than capable to perform the work on this rifle. But in all seriousness, I mean, this isn't just something anybody should jump into, and I want to make it clear this is not a how-to video. I am not recommending doing this in any way or how to do it. This is just something that I do, and if you are going to perform any work on your rifle, if it's something you've never done before, you really need to think about taking it to a qualified gunsmith. They are the ones that know what they're doing. I'm going to be doing something here pretty simple, just a scope swap and a stock swap, but I mean, even swapping stocks out, it can get a little bit tricky, and you might end up taking something apart or breaking something that you never intended to, and it's going to cost you a lot more to get it fixed correctly afterwards, or you could potentially make the gun unsafe. So that's my disclaimer. Don't do as I do. This is just for entertainment. Alright, all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, well, just to be clear on what we've got going here, I've got a Savage Axis in 25-06. I used it a couple videos ago, pretty much brand new right out of the box. Got it all sighted in. Pretty good rifle, shot a good tight group, so thought it'd be kind of fun to maybe put new stock and scope on it. So we have with us Boyd stock in this box. We've got one of the entry-level Leupold scopes. Got some Savage steel Grand Slam rings, and just in case, we've got some Leupold Weaver style base mount for long action. And the reason I did that is because I've been down this road before, and I know that possibly that Leupold scope the tube may not be long enough to make it between these two base mounts, and might have to get that Leupold long action base mount on there to make that Leupold scope work. So if I can get away with it, I'm going to leave the existing Weaver base mounts on there. If I can't, we'll put that Leupold one on. But it will accept the Weaver style scope rings. These scope rings, as you can see, are just the single bolt or single screw on each one. And they're aluminum, whereas these Grand Slams are steel, and they've got the double screws on each side. Then we've also got a torque wrench with us here for when we start putting everything back together. And I'll tell you, I highly recommend using a torque wrench whenever you're doing any, not just rifle work, but man, I use them on anything that requires a torque setting, that's for sure. I don't like to guess, and my own personal torque setting is about half a turn before it breaks, which can be problematic at times because I have that tendency to think, oh, that's not tight enough, give it a little bit more, and then snap. So that torque wrench keeps me out of trouble anyways. Okay, well, let's start taking this thing apart. Now, as with anything you do, safety first. So first thing we want to do is make sure that our rifle is not loaded, and it is clearly not. And I always make it practice when I'm walking in the house. I've already emptied whatever rifle I might have with me, but in this case we're going to go ahead and take the bolt out, set it off to the side just because of the type of work we're doing here. And we'll go ahead and remove the magazine. So we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that our rifle is not loaded. And we'll go ahead and start getting the scope off of it here. And this is a pretty simple process, especially these guys. Now I went ahead and looked it up before I got started with this video, and Weaver recommends 18 foot-pounds on their scope rings when we go to torque it back down, and Savage recommends 35 inch-pounds for both of those. Inch-pounds. And as you can see, we've removed both scope rings with little to no trouble at all. Now, I'll run you guys through this real quick before I take the stock off. So, like I say, I've got a stock base, rings, scope. I bought all of this off of eBay. I have not tested any of it. It's still in the package. Still sealed up. So just like anybody else would in real life, we're going to be opening all this stuff up together, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I hope to Christ it does, and that we can here in a few minutes we'll have a completed rifle. But let's keep our fingers crossed that everything fits the way it's supposed to. So alright, we'll go ahead and get this action off of here. Or, I'm sorry, get the stock off of it. Get the action screws out. Well, keep track of those screws. Might need them later. So, as you can see, we have an action and a trigger. And a barrel. Didn't take us too long to get to this point, just a couple minutes, really. And we'll set these guys off to the side. Set that scope over there so it doesn't get broke. And make sure that all of this is correct, and that appears to be the stock that I ordered. Let's see here, we've got some instructions. Please ensure the recoil lug is properly seated prior to initial usage. And these axes don't really have a recoil lug, or have nothing at all to speak of. It looks like this is the first axis I've ever had apart. I've taken some 110s apart. But, oh, there we go. There's a recoil lug. It's actually in the stock. So, let's see here. Oh, there we go. So, as you can see in the factory stock, the recoil lug is embedded into the stock, and there's just a slot right here where the recoil lug lays in. And then on the Boyd stock, you can see that recoil lug inset in there as well. The initial glance, I've got to say they look to be about the same dimensions, so I think we're in good shape there. Man, I've got to point out too on this Boyd stock, just to make it clear, I'm just a regular customer. They're not endorsing this video in any way, but I've used a few Boyd stocks in the past, and I've had good luck with them. So they're pretty simple, very minor final fitting to get it to work. So There's also another tag I'm taking off here talking about torque settings. Make sure that you, it's just telling you if you don't get your torque settings to the correct amount, that it could cause damage. So, we have a stock here ready to go. Let's see what we've got. So they've got on this stock already a trigger guard and a trigger screw set in there. So really all we have to do is put our action screws in it and we'll be good to go. So let's see how well this thing fits. Make sure that lug lines up on it. And it does. They also say to make sure that before you tighten your screws all the way down, that your barrel is centered, has an equal gap on either side of the fore end. But it looks to me like at this point everything is correct and fitting properly. Okay, so we have this clip right here that needs to be inset into there, and it looks like it's more or less a housing for that, for the magazine, for the clip on the magazine. When get it back together, I'm just going to get these snug right now. I'm not going to torque them, and see if that magazine fits okay. Alright, so those are just snug down. Look at that. Perfect. Wow, that's actually better than it was on the factory stock. That was the one complaint I had with this. Well, was I didn't like it. It was difficult to get that clip in and out, but boy, that's a pretty good fit right there. Easy peasy. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and set my torque wrench to 35 inch-pounds, which actually, that's how good I am. I got it to 35 and didn't even mean to. So we're going to do the front one first till she clicks. Well, that's getting a pretty good bite on it, so we're going to move back to this one. Make sure, yeah, it's 35. There's that one. That one. I like to go back and forth. I'll do it on my scope as well too, just to make sure. A lot of times when you've got two bolts or screws side by side, as you tighten one, the other one will get a little bit looser until they've both got as tight as they need to be. So there you go. In just a matter of minutes, we've got this new stock on here, and it looks like a pretty good stock. I think this is her Prairie Hunter, I think they called it, but my gosh, that couldn't have been any easier at all than what it was. Safety still works good. They've even got, the axis has this little red light right there. As you can see on this one, you've got that little red light. It's actually not a light, it's just a little red indicator, but when you're safe, that's covered up. And Boyd put that on as well, so. Alright. I'll go ahead and put the factory stock over there. Let's see if this scope will fit. And this is the, what is it, the Leupold VX3 Freedom. It's a 3x9x40 with the CDS on it. Is that what they call it? Yeah, the CDS. I've got these on one of my 110 rifles, and pretty good scope. I like it. It's got the duplex reticle, fairly simple, not a lot to them. I don't like things to get too complicated. I like to keep things as simple as I can. But real quick, we're just going to set these, we'll set those lower base on there just to make sure. And I don't know if you can see that, but it's not going to fit. And that's what I was afraid of. But like I say, I've been down this road before with these particular scopes and long action rifles. So we're going to have to take the base off and put that Leupold base on there. Let's see if I can find the right Allen for it. Now it seems like a lot of times from the factory you'll see a little bit of Loctite on those threads. These ones don't appear to have it, and I'm not a fan of that, putting Loctite on these guys anyway. I just torque it down to the proper setting and call it a day. But I do like to undo the factory components when it comes to packages on scopes like this anyway. I just don't necessarily trust that whoever at the factory, maybe he was having a bad day, maybe it was Friday, he was wanting to get out of there, whatever, that they actually got torqued down as they should have. Alright, so we have this base and hopefully this thing is going to fit for us. Always cut away from you, kids. That's old Boy Scout knowledge right there. So I'm just going to set this on here real quick and make sure all of our bolt holes line up on the action. And then it looks like, so this base has 3 different spots on it there. On that side, 2 on that side. So it should be A-OK. So go ahead and cut those out. So we have our extremely small package of screws here that I'm going to do my best not to lose. Put this rail on it. Hopefully it doesn't matter if front or back. I'm going to try it like this and see how well everything fits with the 3 slots in front, 2 in the rear. Okay, and again, I'm just going to snug them. Whoops. I used a little bit bigger head than the good people at Savage did, which is, hopefully I've got that one. Yep, there we go. Okay, so I'm just going to get these finger tight, basically just so they stay, in case I have to pull this back off. So there's that. Take our rings out, the bottom sides here, and we're just going to set these on there. Make sure it fits, and I like to, just out of practice, get them about as far away as I can from each other. I've always felt like that works pretty well. It just seems to me the farther away the bases are, the better chance you have of your tube staying straight. And there we go, that all looks good. Now I don't have very much movement in this thing as far as with those as far apart as they are right there, and my main issue is making sure that I have enough movement to the rear that my eye relief lines up. So we're going to have to check that out real quick and make sure that that's all going to work out okay. So this is a little bit rough since I'm my own cameraman, but what I like to do is I'll just shut my eye, hold my rifle up, get a good cheek weld with my eye closed, and then open my eye. And then I move that scope to where my head is already at, and I make the scope match my eye, if that makes sense. Which it, right there, is it. So, let's see if we can get that to focus. As you can see, there's two sides to this clamp. And when you put this part together on this ring, you want to put the larger end down. That's what's going to contact and hold your base. And you want to be very careful not to cross thread these. So we'll make sure that this scope's going to fit right there, and it will, but I don't have a lot of movement within these guys. So we've already checked it and made sure that I do have enough eye relief there. So we're going to take that scope off for now until we get these guys snug down. Usually I'd use both my hands here, but until I get it, just about got it there. And I snug it down just enough to where it's not loose, where there's no movement in it. So that has that pretty well captured. And if you guys can see there, that lower, I've got the larger part of that clamp on the lower end, and that grabs the base. Okay. Whoops. We got that. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and see if we can get these guys on, and the tops of these Grand Slams are all Torx heads. Actually it looks like the clamp probably was too. Yeah, the clamps are too, and Allen worked because I was just getting it just on there. So man, I hate working with these tiny little screws. Okay. Those ones are all started. Okay, those ones are all started. They're not, because they're going in at the beginning a little bit rough, which made me kind of nervous, but at least that one, so far they're going in. Once you get them started, they go in good. If you get it started and they go in harder and harder, that typically means that you've cross-threaded it, or I suppose the hole or the bolt could be marred, but either way you need to stop and reassess the situation. And the way I do this, again, we'll just start from the beginning. I've got my eye shut. I open my eye, make sure my relief is good, make sure my scope is straight up and down. I like that right there. Very careful not to bump it. And okay, now we're at the point where we're going to start tightening everything down. So I'm going to make sure that my torque wrench is at 18. Okay, I've got these snugged just enough. I know that that is not going to move. I'll catch these side ones, get those torqued down. Okay, go back and forth a couple times just to make sure. Now I like to do these in a kind of an X pattern since there's 4 of them. And then once they're all tightened down, I'll just go around a couple times. And each time I do this, I've got a little bit of movement. And I'm going to keep doing that until I don't have any more movement before it breaks over on that 18 pounds. Or I keep saying pounds, inch pounds. Not foot pounds. Okay. Again, we're doing X pattern. Okay, that's pretty good there. Alright, well, as you can see, we've got a finished product here. All we have left to do now is get it sighted in, but hopefully it's as accurate or better than it was before we started. Pretty sharp looking rifle, to be honest with you. So, well, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.